In Europe today, one of the many unfortunate consequences of pandering to the bigotry of Muslim immigrants has been a rise in anti-Semitism. Not that Europe has ever needed much encouragement on that score. And this has breathed life into a whole host of previously dormant conspiracy casualties who would love to believe that Jews control the world. It seems like almost every day now I hear from somebody telling me that I should educate myself about Jews, how evil they are, how they manipulate everything so that they can control the world. Apparently, Jews are responsible for all kinds of horrible things, including 9/11, well, that goes without saying, and even the curse of multiculturalism. That's right, all those Jews who are being driven out of Europe by hate-filled Muslim immigrants are actually victims of a Jewish plot to destabilize the world so that they can control it, I guess. I don't know, I'm a little light on the details, but then most people are. Compared to the number of Muslims and Christians on this planet, not to mention Hindus and Buddhists, Jews are a handful of people. They're a tiny percentage of the population. Nearly half of them live in Israel, a country the size of a county, and more are being driven there every day, especially from Europe, where it's become fashionable to use the Israeli government's behavior as an excuse for the kind of open anti-Semitism we've become used to hearing from Muslims. At anti-Israel demonstrations in Europe, you're likely to hear calls for Jews to be gassed. We've even had the spectacle of a Dutch member of parliament in the front line of such an event. In Sweden, Israeli athletes can no longer even compete without being attacked by violent mobs because the police can't or won't protect them. Hate crimes against Jews outnumber those against Muslims, and many of them are carried out by Muslims for no other reason than they've been taught from childhood to hate Jews. Meanwhile, day in and day out, we have to listen to their endless hypocritical horseshit about Islamophobia. It's enough to make you want to throw up. I don't like some of the stuff the Israeli government does either, but I support Israel's right to exist and to defend itself against people prepared to use women and children as human shields. I no longer believe that the Israelis should give back Jerusalem. I still think they're holding it for a stupid reason, religion, and it doesn't get any more stupid than that. But experience has taught us that the Islamic mentality views any concession as weakness to be exploited further. And besides, too many so-called Palestinians seem less concerned with peace and freedom than with driving the Jews into the sea, so the bombings wouldn't stop. The whole world knows there could have been a peaceful settlement many times in the past, but for incompetent and corrupt Palestinian leadership. Now, in Gaza, they've saddled themselves with Hamas, a bunch of fundamentalist religious thugs who don't want peace at any price. For Hamas, the enemy is not Israel, the enemy is Jews. If you support Hamas, you support people who want to exterminate Jews, not for being Israelis, but for being Jews. And you support a culture where Jew hatred is bred right into the children. I hope you're proud of yourself. I think Israel's in the wrong place. I've said it before. It couldn't be in a worse place given the hateful mentality of its neighbours, but it's a bit late to do anything about that now. The fact that a Jewish state needs to exist at all, and it does need to exist, is an indictment of all humanity, and especially the Catholic Church, whose centuries-long programme of aggressive Jew hatred has been ingrained right into the European psyche so that it takes almost nothing to bring it out. And that's why, if I were a Jew, even a non-Zionist, peace-campaigning liberal Jew, and there are plenty of them, I would want to see a strong Israel, because when push comes to shove, people simply will not stand up for Jews. We've seen it historically in Europe, and in the wake of the Islamic invasion, we're seeing it again today, especially from the self-styled anti-fascists. What a joke you people are. The truth can often be painful when you don't want to hear it, but you're going to bloody well hear it anyway. And the truth is that Jews have contributed more to humanity than any other group of people. Way more than Muslims, vastly more than Muslims. We're talking different planet more than Muslims. Jews receive a disproportionate number of Nobel Prizes, real ones I mean, not the bullshit peace one, because they're at the top of sciences, medicine, technology, you name it. Wherever there's progress in this world, you'll often find some Jew in there making all the difference. Israel today is a world technological leader, alone in the Middle East, like a diamond in a sea of mud. Compared to Jews, Muslims are passengers on planet Earth getting a free ride. Even the wealth of the Muslim world comes pouring straight out of the ground. If it didn't, they wouldn't have any. It's pathetic, and it's no wonder the Muslim world is so quick to petulant, childish anger. They must have a very poor self-image, and who can blame them? But they're the only ones who can do anything about it. They can choose to drag themselves into the 21st century and leave this filthy garbage behind, or they can carry on humiliating and degrading themselves with hysterical Jew hatred, and we'll carry on judging them on it as an embarrassment to the human race. I do hope that doesn't offend. As for you people who keep telling me that Jews control the world, you know, even if that were true, I would much rather that Jews control this world than Muslims any day, and so would every other sane person on the planet. But it isn't true, and I don't want to hear about it anymore if that wouldn't be too much trouble. So if you really believe that Jews are evil manipulators with their fingers in everyone's pie, or if you really believe that some sinister Jewish cabal is controlling you from above like a marionette, then please, don't tell me about it. Tell a doctor. But maybe not a Jewish one. Peace. Well, incredibly, I'm still getting a very heated response to my video about the phony Palestinian cause and the rabid anti-Semitism that drives it. Quite a lot of shouty uppercase emails calling me a Zionist shill, a Shabbos goy, that's a good one, isn't it? And of course all the usual favourites, Nazi, racist and so on. You know, it's getting so that if I don't get called a racist now, at least once a day, I begin to worry that I may be doing something wrong. So please, keep it up, folks. You're doing a great job, and this video is just for you. Because predictably, nowhere in this blizzard of spittle-flecked abuse has anybody bothered to address the central point of the video, which is that irrational Islamic Jew hatred is the root cause of the problem in the Middle East, and you would have to be blind or politically constipated, in other words, an Islamized lefty, not to see that, or not to want to see it. It's often said, because it's true, that if the Arabs laid down their weapons, there would be peace. If the Jews laid down their weapons, they would be massacred. Because the Arabs, that's the Muslim Arabs, for all you hair splitters out there, don't want peace, they want the Jews dead. They could have their own state by now if they wanted it, they don't want it. They want an end to the Jewish state. And thanks to their religion, the religion of peace, they have the same delusions of manifest destiny in this regard and the same grisly agenda as Hitler. If they had the wherewithal, they'd commit genocide today. They wouldn't wait until tomorrow. It's not even a secret. Thanks to the internet, we can all now see the kind of stuff that's regularly broadcast on Arab TV, praising the Holocaust and demonizing Jews in disgusting ways that would be illegal in any civilized country. We know how much the Arabs hate Jews. They can't stop talking about it. They drum it into their children for all the world to see, brainwashing them into becoming suicide bombers. We can see little 3-year-olds being taught that Jews are apes and pigs, and how glorious it is to be an Islamic martyr and kill yourself to kill Jews. And that's what you support when you support the Palestinians. And you're going to have to live with your conscience. That's if you can find one, because we all know that when operating from the twisted moral perspective of the Islamized political left, having a conscience, or a backbone for that matter, isn't always possible. Like all things Islamic, the Palestinians have long been officially above criticism in the West, and the terrorists of Hamas have plenty of friends, especially in places like Norway and Sweden, whose governments and media seem to hate Israel almost as much as they hate their own countries. Although Jew hatred has always been part of European culture, thanks largely to the Catholic Church, Norway and Sweden are now getting serious reputations as almost Islamically anti-Semitic. Now obviously that doesn't apply to everybody in those countries, but it does apply to the governments and the media who control and who slant the information people get, and who do their best to demonize Israel out of all proportion to reality in the minds of the people. And the people, well, it's a curious thing about the Western world in general. Nobody trusts the media, yet everybody believes what the media tell them. So although I sometimes get the feeling that half the people in the West would almost applaud if Iran were to attack Israel with a nuclear bomb, in Norway and Sweden, God bless them, they'd probably hold street parties. So it was no surprise to me that these two were among the Western countries who shamefully refused to boycott the recent UN anti-racism hate fest, Durban 3, where some of the world's most vile racists, child murderers, child rapists, slavers, war criminals, terrorist funders and serial human rights violators got together to slander and vilify a genuine democracy where Arabs have more rights than they do in any Arab country, including the ones supposedly liberated in the so-called Arab Spring, like Libya, where they've announced that their new constitution will be based on Sharia. Sorry girls, no liberation for you. And where, true to form, they've already started torturing and murdering people. Oh, and they've also made it known that Jews, not Israelis, Jews, will not be welcome in the new Libya. Surprise, surprise. Next door in Egypt, where since the revolution hundreds of Christians have been murdered in the streets by the army for the crime of not being Muslims, if those wretched people have anything to be grateful for, it's for the fact that they're not Jewish, because if they were, none of them would be left alive. And that's what you support when you support the Palestinians, because it's not about Israel, it's about Jews. In universities all over the Western world, Muslim Brotherhood front groups are allowed to spread their anti-Semitic poison unchecked, while anyone defending Israel is shouted down or barred from access altogether, because students who've been Islamized don't like free speech. Whenever Israel defends itself from terrorism, we see armies of self-righteous left-wing bubbleheads marching through European cities holding banners that read, "We are all Hamas now," as if that's something to be proud of. If those banners were honest, they would read, "We are all religious hate-mongers, racists and murderers now, who put no value on human life because our minds are pickled in a barbaric religion and we are completely insane." Actually, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So maybe the last bit could go on a separate banner or something. Or why not simply cut to the chase and put "Death to Jews," because that's what you support when you support the Palestinians. You are being used as a hand puppet by the Muslim Brotherhood because you've chosen to believe the lie of the apartheid state without bothering to examine the evidence. You've bought a propaganda campaign Goebbels would have been proud of, and what you're actually doing is supporting an Islamic war of extermination against Jews. And if you measure yourself by the same stringent standards that you left-wing hypocrites love to apply to others, then it follows that you are a racist with blood on your hands. No offence. Peace? Yeah, that'll be the day.